Good. Glad you love you. Everybody else is special. As long as you end with a positive spin. Thank you. Easy. Your arm flat. Yes, easy. It's very forgiving. Yes. What a beautiful day it is.
Under a cloud of your own. One of these days at dawn, you'll rise from yourself like a song and shatter the stars as only sunshine can do.
I'm painting my front steps. I was waiting for you.
Don't run away from the fire,
When I get home.
child of ancient Abraham. Your beauty comes from within. Pure gold delights in the flames. Night upon night, they brighten your golden face. If sugar could speak, what sweet words it would say. This body is a reed flute, and you, my soul, are a melody.
Yeah. This is his first experience. It's not now. Very good. And he said yes. He's much worse. When you went out, way worse than us. Yeah.
Know your life
One day, the sneeze had
under a cloud of your own. One of these days at dawn, you'll rise from yourself like the sun and shatter the stars as only sunshine can do. Don't run away from the fire, child of ancient Abraham. Your beauty comes from within. Pure gold delights in the flames. Night upon night, they brighten your golden face. If sugar could speak, what sweet words it would say. This body is a reed flute, and you, my soul, are a melody.
They don't want to be responsible for it. Which is not good. They should be responsible for the job. Well, your husband's gonna do great. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living, Morristown. I'm Frankie Timmers. I'm the spiritual director, and I'm so happy to see your beautiful faces. It's so interesting because I love vacation, and I have no problem taking vacation. I'm really good at self-care, as most of you know. But when I'm away, I miss it, and I miss you. So I'm very, very grateful that Lori did an amazing job speaking. And I'm really grateful for Gail helping to assist. And of course, I'm grateful that Gail also got to do the Healing Circle on Friday, which is every first Friday of the month. So we are a little past the middle of the theme for the year, which is Living Out Loud. I already know the theme for next year. I'm not telling you. And it's a new month. So this month, and those of you who have our beautiful journal, it's August, My Passion, My Purpose. So we're exploring that, and today the topic is Your Sacred Why. And we are blessed to have John Heron with us, assisting practitioner from Princeton. And we are exploring a few ideas around our purpose. The first thing we're going to think about is how important it is for us to remember that life is a miracle. That you and I are a miracle, physically and spiritually, right? And then how can we get more passionate about that so that our purpose is more clear and is more driven by love, because it's a constant practice to be living our purpose, right? It's not just a one-time thing. And then we're going to explore some idea of what practices we can use to not only discover our purpose, but to stay centered in it. So those of you that are online, we're so happy that you're joining us, whether it's today or any time in the future. And I'm excited about some events that we have coming up, because Michael Malik is teaching another chakra workshop on Saturday. Yes, it's a Saturday, the 26th. What's very important is that you sign up, which is kind of like a no-brainer, right? Because if nobody signs up, it's going to be canceled. So when you sign up, we know you're coming. And the flyers are over there. And those of you that get a weekly invite, a weekly constant contact, all the information is in there and is an easy way to register. All you do have to click at a button. And it is a workshop from 9 a.m. till 12:30 on a Saturday morning. And then we have a couple of things coming up. I'm doing another art journal workshop that's going to be in-house on September 17th after celebration. And on September 24th, we have Elaine Silverback, and she's going to speak that Sunday and then do a workshop afterwards called BTology. She's an official BTologist. And those of you who have experienced that particular concert, workshop, event, think you've already heard all of it, but as you know, Elaine is very creative and she always comes up with new stuff, so it's going to be different. And what I also want you to know is that John is going to do the Treatment Express afterwards, so anybody that wants to like a quick treatment, a quickie treatment, he'll be right here doing that for you. There's a new list on the door for those of you that are here that would like to facilitate our social hour. How many of you love social hour? Okay, so those of you that love it, you might want to sign your name to facilitate it one day, and I will help make that happen once you sign up. So, all right, so our Namaste practice is the practice that we do every day, every Sunday, to greet one another. In Sanskrit, Namaste means the divinity in me blesses the divinity in you. So you're not just giving, you're also receiving. So let's do that very deliberately and consciously. Put your hands together. Just bow to someone. Say Namaste. Namaste. And let's treat our word for affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment. I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, and simply allow yourself to withdraw your attention from the outer world and set the intention to be deeply present in that inner world, which is beyond the boundary of our very being, beyond the boundary of our very life. It's the boundaryless experience of Spirit itself, incarnated as each and every one of us. So today we open our minds, our hearts, and our experience to awaken to a new way of seeing ourselves, to a new idea, to a new awareness of who and what we are and what our purpose is. We turn to this idea that everything about who and what we are is absolutely and beautifully sacred. And so we allow this word to dissolve anything unlike it, so that we can experience a greater sense of freedom of self-expression, which is so unique for each and every one of us because we are unique, individualized expressions of the one. So no two alike. That's why we listen from the inside out, because then it becomes a real, capital R-E-A-L, experience. This today we welcome. This today we trust. And therefore today we let go of any notion that could possibly be in the way. So then what's left is deep awe and gratitude for this miraculous experience called life. And so it is.
And so it is.
So I think the thing that we probably forget the most and forget the most often is how miraculous we are. I mean, go figure. Some seed and some egg got together and made you. That didn't just happen. That's not destiny. That's coincidence, maybe, but if we look at it from a spiritual perspective, it makes it even more miraculous. That we have incarnated, meaning we came into a body now, and not in the year 2000, or 1000, or 100, or 3000. There is something so innately miraculous about our incarnation here and now that we often forget. You made it! You made it into this human experience, this human life, because there was a need for you and I. Now. Here. And we forget that because we get so focused on the things of life with a small l, of our own self-absorbed issues and challenges, of our fears and worries, of our desires and needs, that we forget that there's something so much bigger going on that we are here for. And so it's not really miraculous that we/people are suffering. Because forgetfulness creates suffering. I hope that makes sense. Does it?
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm talking to the right people. So I want you to hear this beautiful piece in the new Science of Mind magazine, which finally arrived. We're selling them for $5. There's like 4 left. And if you wish, you may close your eyes. It's written by Dennis Merritt Jones, a dear colleague of mine. And imagine that Spirit is speaking to you. Imagine in the beginning, before we each arrived here, from the ethers of the divine, God plucked from its own essence little individuated globules of itself, and speaking to them said the following: soul beings, I'm sending you on a mission. Your soul and soul purpose, S-O-L-E, your soul, S-O-U-L, and soul, S-O-L-E, purpose, is to go to planet Earth and to be me. To make this possible, I give you a uniform called a body, which is nothing more than a temporary, carbon-based, biodegradable, disposable vessel from which you shall eject upon completion of your mission. I also give you a personality with which you will create many learning opportunities about how to be me in my highest vibration, unconditional love. Because this is a big job, you'll not be alone on your mission. I've sent 8 billion of you to be me. You'll know when you are being on purpose, because you'll feel connected to something larger than yourself, which is me. Be mindful of that feeling. It's called passion. and it will tether you to your purpose in the present moment. I breathe the breath of my life into you because we are a team. We need each other to fulfill this purpose. Because I am the life principle that animates your being, you are my emissary, my divine delivery system. Therefore, your purpose is to be an open and willing vessel through which I flow into infinite and unique forms of expression. In an effort to imitate other soul beings, I created you to be one of a kind, ambassador, because I don't need two of anything exactly the same, which would be a redundancy in a universe of infinite possibilities. My desire is for you to be me as only you can. Now, depart into the light and fulfill your unique purpose with passion. Oh, and by the way, when you arrive on Earth, you'll forget all about this conversation. Yes, so the thing about our purpose is it isn't perfectly, beautifully, clearly laid out. You didn't receive a manual. You and I had to discover this on our own. It wasn't just given. And that is because it's not an outside-in thing. It's an inside-out thing. And that requires that we're mindful. That's why we're mindful. It requires we pay attention. It requires that we do our spiritual practices. It requires that we listen. When I was driving here this morning, I don't know if you experienced that, on 287, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, about 50 BMWs were flying by me like this. Like 50 of them. I didn't count, but it was a lot. It was like there was a race going on 287 at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they all decided to do this together, and I got really nervous. I was going 70, 71. There was a truck on my side, and I was like worried for a moment that somebody was going to squeeze in whichever way, but I just took a breath. I listened to my heart. I slowed down. I made sure I was safe. And I watched this crazy thing happen right in front of my face, and I didn't judge it. And so those, to me, are like perfect moments, right? To get quiet, to slow down, to choose love, to be mindful when stuff gets difficult or when the unexpected shows up. I mean, I'm 66. I have never experienced that in my life, not even in Europe. Not even in Germany, where they're known to be so fast. And so it ended up being something funny, and I'm kind of curious. I'm like, what was that? Who planned this? How did they do this, right? And so we learn little by little that this whole idea of our purpose and our passion is about discovery, and it's an ongoing life process. And it's about our being, which is something that unfolds and develops until we take our last breath. And that out of our beingness, the more solidly we grounded in our beingness, the more clear our purpose is, and the more love-driven our purpose is. Because we all know people that have a passion and a purpose, and behind it is frustration, anger, worry, anxiety. It's a different thing, right? When it shows up in the world. So this beautiful journal that we're using this year has a quote on the first page by Rod T. Bennett. Some of you have this, who's an author. He says, "Believe in your heart that you are meant to live a life full of passion, purpose, magic, and miracles." That's very telling, because some people, or maybe sometimes, we believe that we're meant to live a life of dread, misery, depression, fear, anger, worry, and judgment. It's very tricky, right? Because it's not always conscious that is happening, because there's a belief underneath of a sense of separation, or a belief that we're not worthy, or a belief that we're not enough or not good enough. And so in August, the whole month, we're going to be exploring this idea of our passion and our purpose. So there's a lot to say about it. Some people don't like the word passion, or they don't resonate with the word passion because it has some weird connotations to it, right? Or there are some unhealthy passions that maybe we've experienced or witnessed that we worry about or struggle with. But the idea of passion is really the question of, what do you love? It's that simple. It doesn't always have to be to save the world, to world peace, or it can be something very small. And I don't know what that is for you, but for me, there are these little passions that guide me throughout my day, and then there's the bigger ones and the in-between ones, and they're all connected because they have to be aligned in order for us to live life, right? And so I love the question in Prosperity Plus, where we ask ourselves, what would I love? What would I love? And I have to admit to you, there was a time in my life where I had no idea. I don't know what I love. I don't know what I would love to do or be. Many of you know, not all of you, but know that I was incredibly lost until I found this teaching. I was a veterinarian assistant. I was a cleaning lady. I was a babysitter. I was a language tutor. I was a salesperson in a health food store. And I was just lost, doing little things just to make enough money to survive. Until I went into this teaching, and at the end of my 4th year, which was really 6 years, I think, 5 or 6, my teacher said, you know, you have a gift. I would love for you to consider to become a minister. And I was like, what? No way, because my self-esteem was in the toilet, and I just didn't think my English was good enough, and I didn't think that that's what I could do. But I didn't dismiss it. That could have easily have happened, right? When you're stuck in your story of lack and limitation, you're not going to hear that kind of message because your mind is preoccupied, right? So I was like, well, let me think about that. And I was going to travel and visit my family in the Netherlands for a month, and I decided I would let him know when I got back. And so I spent some time treating and meditating and thinking about that. And when I came back, I went, of course, what else could I possibly do? And so when I was installed or ordained, I don't remember, the minister that was doing that said, are you sure that this is what you want to do? Because if you're not sure, don't do it. Because it's very demanding. Because you have to heal and grow yourself, and you have to be present from a place of love and not anger, worry, fear. Not that that never happens, it did. Some of you may remember. And so there was a whole process with that, and that's now 40 years ago. God. And so this idea of asking ourselves, what is it that I love? What do I love in my life? What do I love to do? What would I love to be? How would I love to serve? Is an important question that we can literally ask ourselves at least once a day in our morning practice, and to then follow it, and then to notice where we trip and fall, and to use that to learn and grow and to get back up, and with that learning to expand in consciousness, right? And so the idea then is to find that spark, find that fire of what we love. Sometimes what people do is they say, well, I think it's this, but I'm not sure, so I'm not going to do this until I'm sure. Well, no, do this, because this will literally lead you to what's next. From one thing to the other, because that's how the universe works. It doesn't always give us the whole package all at once. Sometimes just little steps. And so we have to be sure that we are in alignment with ourselves, with our lives, with what we love, with what we're doing. and that we have to stay really grounded in our spiritual practices, in our self-care, in our passions, in our purpose, in our day-to-day living. Because the more grounded we are, the more we know what the next step is, and the more we're given what we need to nourish the purpose that we're here to live. Even if we don't know, living in the question is a really powerful way to be. And then we commit over and over and over again. There was a time in ministry, a long time ago, when I was ready to quit. It only happened once. And what I thought I would love is be a waitress somewhere in the Midwest. So I could just put cash in my pocket every day and just go home and not have to deal with people and things like that. It didn't last very long because my purpose and my passion said, you'd hate that. That would never work for you. That's not who you are. And so sometimes we have to listen to the part of us that's resistant, right? Because it gives us information. I ended up laughing at myself and very quickly saying, no, that's not really it. I'm just at a growing edge of what I'm here to learn, what I'm here to be, how I'm here to serve. So I don't know how you process this step-by-step idea of arriving at a clearer purpose or a new purpose or a deeper purpose. But let's say, for example, that you are incredibly passionate about world peace. I mean, I think most of us are, right? So let's say that you're just, peace is just the end of war, peace in the world, peace for all human beings, inner peace, peace for myself. Well, we discover that fire, that desire, that longing to have more peace in the world. And then we ask that fire, that spark, how do I live that? How do I express that? What is it that you want from me that only I can serve as a purpose and no one else? Because I am a unique, individualized expression of the one. What needs to be healed in me? Because it's really great to scream and yell and fight for world peace. But if we don't have peace in our own hearts, it's not going to work. It's going to be more struggle, more suffering. Does that mean that that person that says peace is ever going to be at 100% peace inside? Probably not. But it will change. They will become more peaceful. And then it's more believable. It's because it's in integrity with passion and purpose aligned. And then we might want to think, like, what is in the way for me? What is it that is mine to dissolve? And then we make a commitment. And every time we falter, which we will, we get back up and start again and serve again and repeat the process again. So that's a lifetime, right? That is a lifetime of living with our passion and living on purpose, knowing that every time we overcome something in our consciousness that might be in the way where we need to learn something new might surface. And we stay conscious of that. We stay present with that. We stay mindful with that. We have to keep returning over and over and over again to this, what would love do? What does love have in store for me? What is love guiding me to be? What is love guiding me to do? I have a favorite TV show. I probably have about 10. But there's one that's very close to the top. It's called Call the Midwife. It's a PBS show. If you have not seen it, it might be a really fun thing to do over the summer. It is a show about early 20s in London, the poorest area of London, and every season they go through different decades. I think they're in the 60s now. Yeah. And they address these different issues. It's a monastery with these nuns that are midwives, and then there are nurses that are midwives. And it's just, it's wonderful. And so Sister Julianne, who leads the monastery in one of the episodes recently, it's a while ago because I'm done with it, but said, go where the love is, because that's where life is. Go where the love is, because that's where life is. what if we capitalize the words love and life, knowing that they stand for spirit, right? Go where the universal love within us is, because that's where we find our own life. It's so powerful, because our passion and our purpose has to be, as I said before, grounded in love. Not the kind of love with a small L, conditional versus unconditional, but the universal love that birthed you. The universal love that turned each of us into a miracle, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so that's why we do our spiritual practices in an ongoing way, because if our purpose is not grounded in love and in our spiritual practices, it causes us to suffer. I mean, imagine somebody who has as a purpose to, and it has a vision for world peace, and they watch the news. There's a call for prayer. Because now, with the internet and 24-hour news, not to mention that there are two completely different news stories going on, it's very demanding to keep ourselves centered in peace. So you can see why the spiritual practices are important. One of them for me is to not watch the news. I know what's going on because I watch one particular show to know what's going on, and that's it. Because it's just too much. And it's kind of a repeat or a different angle of the same story anyway, right? And so the spiritual practices are about remembering who you really are. Remembering whose you really are. Remembering what you really are. Remembering where you really are, which is all pure spirit. Everything else is just stories we've made up to maybe avoid the real story or to forget the real story because it's demanding. Right? And then we remember our why. Even if it's a teeny tiny thing like pick up the trash outside my house. We follow that and we make it a sacred practice. Because it's our remembrance that all of life is sacred. Every activity is sacred. Everyone is sacred. Everything everywhere is sacred, becomes the food to fulfill our purpose. We're invited to be in constant, oh, wow, 50 BMWs flying by me on both sides. Whoa, instead of this thing, you know. To constantly be in awe and wonder of how we put ourselves down, how we feel not enough, how we struggle with some things, how we forget the gifts of life. To just look at it in a different way, because then the healing can come and we're not in resistance all the time. And then we practice listening. Whether you are somebody who meditates or treats or does visioning, which some of you are new to visioning, where you really are just listening to spirit within you for guidance, right? Or you do Tai Chi or yoga, all those are amazing practices. And then we notice what wants to be healed. Heal in our language means to be made whole. Because in some ways we feel broken. In some ways we are broken. Sometimes perfectly broken. And so we ask for the healing. We declare the healing. We honor and own the healing experience. And then we move into service. That's why we ask every day, how may I serve? Because it's different all the time, right? It's in the little ways, in the quiet ways, in the loud ways, in the big ways, to be of service. So here is a brand new book that I'm completely head over heels in love with. It's brand new. It's Ernest Holmes at Asilomar. These are lectures and classes from the 50s, which is the last decade he was alive. It is fantastic. And I don't know why I'm highlighting things, because I might as well highlight everything. So I'm only on page 48, but it's just so wonderful, and I'm so excited about it. So I want to close with this reading, which is on page 22. And interestingly enough, Asilomar is a retreat place. It's a YWCA, and it's right on the coast in Pacific Grove, just by Monterey. And we used to have our yearly conferences there, and there's one happening now, right now, that hasn't happened in a while, so we bless all those who are there. Okay, so it says, all creation, in my estimation, exists for the delight of God, the self-expression of the infinite, the articulation of that which needs instrumentality for its own identity. Therefore, only as you and I, in wonder, with reverence but with enthusiasm, identify ourselves with the living Spirit, can we hope that the living Spirit, through this instrumentality, shall shape the course of our existence. Sing the song of eternity, the wonder at the heart of love. The mother crooning over her baby suddenly is a part of the divine heart, surrendering its being to its own creation, human love. Thus, identified with divine givingness and grace, as it is called, the most wonderful, the most entrancing concept, and the human intellect surrendering itself to divine wisdom, that intuition shall speak in its own language of eternity to the human mind. That's only one paragraph in this very big, beautiful, heavy book. And so the invitation as we go through this month is to just clarify our purpose and our passion. And if you say, I have no clue and I probably never will, you're in the perfect right place, because we're going to discover and refine it together. We're going to have some music, Bob Sima song, and then John is going to share a personal story, right, of what I just talked about.
You are not your story, no, no, no. You are not your story, no, no, no. You are not your story, let it go. You are not your story, let it go. It's a figment of your imagination. It's fleeting and it's ever changing, but you are not your story, no, no, no.
Good morning.
I'm thinking, okay, we've got it. So are you all listening within? This is such a wonderful topic. And so Reverend Frankie was encouraging me to talk about my experience around this kind of thing. So probably most of you don't know B knows. B and I have been friends for years. So when I was younger, I was an actor. And when I started acting, when I went to acting school, I had this experience. Up until that time, I'd been a very frightened person, right? And I was not able to connect with people. People thought I was connecting because on the surface, I was a happy guy, I was easy to talk to and all that kind of stuff, but there was a place that was totally hidden inside of me. And what I experienced when I started studying acting was this place inside of me opened up. It was an incredible experience, and it happened every time I got in front of an audience. And it wasn't about my skill as an actor, it wasn't about the training I was receiving, there was this thing that I experienced. And so what happened to me was I became totally, I don't know, the word isn't curious, I'm passionate about what is that? Right? And it was a very distinct, it was more real to me than what I was experiencing externally. And so it became this passion, and I began to think, okay, this is what people call spiritual. There's something awakening inside of me. And it wasn't just me, because people would come to me when I would have that experience, and I got that they were experiencing something from me. So I became a monk, of course. What else would one do? No, I became really curious. I realized that what I loved from acting, and I was a good actor, right? That was the feedback I got. But what I loved about it was that experience. And I wanted to know what that was. And I found a teaching that seemed to speak back to me the things I was experiencing, and I became a monk, a Hindu monk. And I lived there for 11 years in that monastery. And it was when I realized, it was an interesting experience for me, because after that 11 years, I realized that I had moved away from, in trying to fit myself into the very clear form that particular teaching gave me, I had moved away from rather than toward that place inside of me. And so I left after 11 years. I had nothing. I had no friends. I had no job. I mean, I had been an actor, as I said, right? And suddenly, I wasn't 25 years old. I was 37 years old. And I moved around. I had some really interesting experiences. And where I was talking to Reverend Frankie about this morning is, eventually moved to New Jersey in 1996 with my husband. And my husband said to me, "You're going to get involved in community theater." And I went, "Like hell I will." Because in my mind, community theater was a bunch of people getting together to put on a show. And the way I held theater inside of me, it was an important thing. I wouldn't, the word serious would be wrong, important, right? And it wasn't a game, right? And then one day, one of my neighbors who I had been talking to, and I had mentioned that I had been an actor, she showed up at my door and she said, "I'm going to an audition and you're coming with me." Okay, so I went and I got cast in this show. And I got very involved with community theater, and one thing led to another, and I became a director, right? Which I still am. And what I experienced when I was a director, and this is why we were talking about this in the context of what we're talking about, of follow the love because that's where life is, right? I began to experience, and I still experience this, that when I was working with actors and talking with them, that I always knew exactly what I needed to say. And I was conscious that there was this thing going on, that I learned to just let go and follow it. And sometimes the craziest things would show up in my head. And I would go, that's a little crazy. And I learned, no, you say those things. Because those things turned out to be, the actor would go, oh, yeah, that's what I'm missing, or something like that. And so I've consistently had that experience. I've learned to listen to that. And I understand that for me, as a person who really cares about living a life in the presence of spirit, in the presence of love, in the presence of joy, that's my expression. It's my inner knowing, because it's the only way I can describe it. I don't know where that comes from. Well, I would say I do now know where that comes from, but it is a deeper truth that reveals itself to me in that context. I recently had an experience where I directed a show just a few months ago. And we were having the auditions, and we were at callbacks, which is after you see all the actors, some of the actors who were possible candidates for the roles, you ask them to come back, and you tell them, I want you to do this, 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 and this, because I'm trying to put it together an ensemble. And I had two people that I called back for the lead role. And they were both good, and they were both wrong. And I realized that at the callbacks. Now, there was a third man I had called back who had auditioned for the lead role, and I thought, he's not quite right. But I want to call him, I like him, I'm calling him back for a different role. And he was sitting there, and the other two guys were sitting there, and in my head went, ask Peter to read that monologue. And I said to myself, you can't do that. You've told these guys you're calling them back for this role, and you've told Peter you're not calling him back for the lead role, you're calling him back for another role. And my brain went, ask Peter to get up and read that monologue. And I looked at my producer who was in the room. I had two producers and they were in the room. And I said, I looked at Adam, my producer, and I said, he was sort of sitting near me. I said, I'm going to do something crazy. And I looked at Peter and I said, would you be willing to get up and read that monologue? Well, he was fabulous. He was just right. And he had listened to why I didn't call him back for that role originally. Because I had said to him, he had a way of talking, it was sort of like this, and I knew, I was going to really have to work with him to get clear. And the way the play was constructed, this man really was the lead. He had 5 monologues through the course of the play. You had to really understand every word he was saying. So I asked him to get up and read it, and he was just great. And so I asked all the actors to wait out in the lobby, and I went to my producers and said, are you seeing what I'm seeing? We all agreed on it, and we asked Peter to do the lead, and he was totally confused. He said, but you didn't call me back for that. And I said, yeah, you're the right guy. Do you want to do it? Now, it turned out he was just brilliant and wonderful in the role. But it was a perfect example to me where I'm in touch with that part of me when I'm directing, because that's the right place for me. After all these years, I've figured it out. That's the right place for me. That is my ministry. That is my work as a practitioner. That's what I do. And interestingly enough, in that last show that I directed, I heard myself giving feedback to Peter and the other actor and the other lead that was different, I think, than I had ever given before. And it was me as a practitioner talking. I mean, they didn't know that. You know, that side of my life, they don't know. It's become part of me. It's where I am the most, I call lined up, right? With the deeper place inside. And it's really taught me what's my job as a practitioner. I'm now, a practitioner is a position of service. And the service that I do is work in consciousness with myself, go deeper, truly be in the divine presence in deeper and deeper ways in my life. And it's a position of service to just have that consciousness and share that consciousness. And the place that I share it in the best way in the world is when I'm directing. And when I'm acting, which I don't get to do as much anymore. So I hope that story has some value to you, because it really is true that every one of us, we would not be here as an individual with the body we have and the mind we have and the spirit that we have if we didn't have a purpose like that. I guess I'm lucky or blessed or whatever you want to say that I found that pretty early in my life. And I was able to live with the consciousness of that. But I'm 76 years old. I am still finding day to day. And there is no reason why any of us can't still find that place where we express who we are as spirit. We can do it. Ernest Holmes teaches us to listen. What are we listening to? We're listening to the depth of who we are, where spirit lives in us. So I hope that's of some value to you. And thank you for listening and letting me talk about this stuff.
See, that was perfect. It was a whole different direction before.
Yeah.
I love that. I love this. So, this is our time together to be grateful and to give. Whether your giving is your presence, or your money, or your service, or you're signing up to do a social hour, it's all good. It's all welcomed, because some of you are not able to give financially, and we love you, and that's actually a perfect time to treat with John for your abundance. But you are all loved, and you are all welcome, and you're all cherished. But let's pass the basket. If you need to write anything out, like a check, just keep moving it, and you can use it later. And let's do the affirmation together. Divine love consecrates my gift.
Divine love consecrates my gift.
It goes forth to heal, prosper, and to bless.
It goes forth to heal, prosper, and bless.
It returns to me,
It returns to me,
multiplied abundantly.
multiplied abundantly.
As I share my good,
As I share my good,
I accept my greater good.
I accept my greater good.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Well, let's take a moment that if the basket comes by and you're not giving today, just bless. Just bless it. Let it be representation of your love for this community, your love for God, your love for truth, your love for each other, all that good stuff. And now we have John back again, blessing us with a closing treatment.
And so in this incredibly blessed and holy space, and if you don't like the words blessed and holy because they're very religious words, this place of love, I know that this is the truth for everyone who is participating in this service, either physically here in the room or digitally out in the digital universe. There is only one truth, one infinite truth, and I know that this truth is living, infinite blessing, present in everything, always, everywhere. It is the infinite, eternal yes. And since it is infinite and eternal, that means that it is everything and everyone. And so all those who are participating in this celebration are an expression of that infinite living blessing. And so I know that this living blessing is now conscious in everyone's life, and everywhere that we look, everything that we experience, each one is now knowing that this is the truth, that there is only infinite, blessed yes present in everything. And so I know that each one is now saying yes back to that infinite yes. Each one is receiving it and saying yes back. And in that way, each one's life is fully blessed. There is love. There is the experience of joy, the experience of peace. And so this joy and peace now expresses itself in every area of everyone's life. And so wherever each one turns, each one sees and knows and feels the divine presence. And this divine presence is expressing as abundance of every kind, as love of every kind. And it heals and it knows its truth, living in everyone. And so everyone goes forth into the world and finds that their week is blessed. Their month, their year, their life is blessed with the presence of infinite, living, loving truth. Blessing fully present. And this being so, with great gratitude for this truth, I release this to the law. It is done right here and now, and so it is.
And so it is.